My name is Julie Sies, owner of Exponential Functions, and thank you and welcome for joining me today. We're going to talk about leadership styles. I'm the owner of Exponential Functions, and I do leadership training, and I'm a certified business and life coach. We empower people to lead at their highest level. I'm glad you joined me today, and so for the next hour, we're going to talk about leadership styles, and we'll take an assessment. And after we take the assessment, you'll get the results, and we'll explain what those results mean, and it'll give you a better picture and idea of who you are as a leader, how you operate, and maybe when to shift into a different leadership style. So I'll show the different options. You'll learn a lot, and we're going to have a good time. So I am going to turn off my screen right now, and I am going to stop the video and share my screen. And we're going to get going. So I believe when you exert influence, then you are a leader. And as a leader, understanding your motivations and beliefs is key to your development. So I've been leading groups pretty much my entire career. In the last 10 years, distinctly, I felt compelled to invest in others by using transformational leadership as a tool, developing as a professional business life coach. And in my personal life, I've worked as a leader, not only as a mentor for women and men, but in my church, as a board member for a couple of different organizations, and actually being a purposeful example to my growing family. Because I'm mature, as you saw from my picture, I've had plenty of experience to have both wild success and utter failure. And that caused me to want to go deeper as a leader. So let's get to it. Let's identify your leadership language. All right, here's my why. These are the people that I love and that I serve in my family. My girls and their husbands, and then those 2 grandchildren. So leadership starts at home. It starts with you as an individual, and it goes beyond there. Identifying your leadership language. Before we go any further, I want you to think about the people in your life that you've had influence over. I asked you to do this because I want you to understand that if you have influence, you're a leader, and how you exert your influence can be both good and not so good. And I would venture to say that nobody in this room has been unscathed by bad leaders. And I'm sure you realize that everyone wins when the leader gets better. So how do you define leadership? When I say the word, a good leader should always, what do you think? How you finish that sentence could reveal a lot about your leadership style. In the comments section, and I'll open up that comment room, you can go ahead and write a few things. Well, in the comment room, we actually had the comment room, and I did this live a couple of days ago. And I got some interesting responses about leaders and what they think. And then I also did some research, and I looked at some of the thought leaders that are out there right now. Pause. Good afternoon. My name is Julie Sies of Exponential Functions. Thank you for joining me today for identifying your leadership style. in this webinar, I actually did it live a couple of days ago, but it didn't record. So I wanted to make sure that it got recorded and that I sent it out to everybody who attended, which I appreciate your enthusiasm and your wonderful participation. So as I said the other day, thank you for joining me to discuss leadership styles. We're going to take an assessment which identifies who you are as a leader. We'll unpack what that means and the different levels of team development as it relates to your leadership style and what to do to improve. I believe when you exert influence that you are leading. Now, as a leader, understanding your motivations is really important. And it helps us to identify, how we can improve. I've been leading various groups my entire career. In the last 10 years distinctly, I've focused mostly on working with organizations to develop their leadership and as a professional business and life coach. In my personal life, I serve as a mentor to women. I serve on a couple of different boards, and I'm an intentional and purposeful leader to my growing family. And I'll show you a picture of them in a minute when I turn off my camera. And they're my why. The next generation, who's coming up next, they need to see examples of people who lead well and who have integrity and drive to become people of influence for the good. Now, because I'm mature, I've had my fair share of wild success and my fair share of failures as well. And because of those failures, I think you really do dig in deeper and you try to look for what works and what doesn't work and how you can do the most good. So let's get to today's seminar. I'm going to turn off my video and you'll just see a still picture of me. I don't want it to distract from going through the material because I am reading part of it and I want to make sure that it's clear and understandable. So I'm going to turn off my video and then share my screen and we'll go for there. So I'm going to back up one and show you my why. There they are. There they are. Those are my people. The two little ones on the right are Vera and Abram, and they have stolen my heart. So a lot of fun. All right, let's move on. Identifying your leadership language. Please think for a moment about the people in your life that you have influence over. I showed you my Vera. I asked you to do this because I want you to understand that if you have influence, you are a leader. And how you exert that influence can be both good and not so good. If you were to define the sentence, how do you define leader, or a good leader should always, what would you say? As you finish that sentence, it would reveal a lot about your leadership style. As I was researching this project, I thought I'd look at some of the people that have influenced me or that I've read their books or been to their seminars and things, people that I respect and admire. And John Maxwell defines leadership as leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. Jack Canfield states that becoming a leader gives you the opportunity to magnify your impact in the world, and it allows you to leverage the hearts and actions of others towards the achievement of goals and objectives that you care about. It allows you to produce bigger results faster than you could ever do on your own. And Tony Robbins believes leadership is the ability to create immediate impact and compel lasting positive change in others. It's understanding what motivates people and how to harness the power of influence in yourself and others, and to achieve greater vision for mankind at every level. Ultimately, a leader is master of their own psychology. Habits coach Brendan Burchard defines high performance as the ability to succeed above and beyond standard norms over the long term. High-performing leaders achieve great success in even extraordinary circumstances. They master their mind, emotions, and time to get the best out of themselves and their teams. Well, leadership is a fluid practice, and anyone who strives to be a leader is always changing and improving based on the information they learn and what their followers need from them. The longer you lead, the more likely it is you'll change the way you choose to complete that sentence, a good leader should always. In order to grow as a leader, you first need to assess your thinking and your current behavior. We're going to dive into a short survey developed by leadership expert and professor Bill Torbert and psychologist Suzanne Cook-Gruder. It's called the Leadership Development Profile, and it will help you determine which leadership style you uphold based on the action logics you most agree with. In other words, I'm going to read some statements, and you pick the ones that you most relate to or that you believe. Grab a paper and pen, and when I read a statement that you believe or agree with, write down the letter combination. For example, SI or A3. At the end, we'll determine what your answers say about you as a leader. Keep in mind that the categories or the groupings of the statements and the way they're organized doesn't necessarily relate to the final outcome. So let's get started. The individualist. An individualist leader is self-aware, creative, and primarily focused on their own actions as opposed to the overall organizational performance. They're exceptionally driven by the desire to exceed personal goals and constantly improve upon their skills. Here are some good statements that an individualist leader might agree with. I1. A good leader should always trust their own abilities or intuition over established organizational processes. That was I1. I2 says it's important to be able to relate to others so I can easily communicate complex ideas to them. That was I2. I3 says I'm more comfortable with progress than sustained success. To repeat those, I1, a good leader should always trust their own intuition over established organizational processes. I2, it's important to be able to relate to others so I can easily communicate complex ideas to them. And I3, I'm comfortable with progress. I'm more comfortable with progress than sustained success. The strategist is the next one. Strategists are extremely aware of the environments in which they operate. They make it a point to gather a deep understanding of the structures and processes that make their business tick. But they're also able to keep perspective, apply critical thinking, and evaluate what could be improved. Here are some things a strategist might say. S1, a good leader should always be able to build a consensus in divided groups. S2, it's important to develop an organization as a whole, in addition to the growth of the individuals. S3, conflict is inevitable, but I know enough about my team's personal and professional relationships to handle that friction. Again, S1, a good leader should always be able to build consensus in divided groups. S2, it's important to help develop an organization as a whole, in addition to the growth of the individuals. S3, conflict is inevitable, but I know enough about my team's personal and professional relationships to handle the friction. The alchemist is the next one. What distinguishes an alchemist from other action logics is their unique ability to see the big picture in everything, while also understanding the need it takes to take details seriously. Under this type of leadership, no department or employee is overlooked. Here are some examples that an alchemist leader might agree with. A1, a good leader helps their employee reach their highest potential and possesses the necessary empathy and moral awareness to get there. A2, it's important to make a profound and positive impact on whatever I'm working on. A3, I have the unique ability to balance short-term needs and long-term goals. Again, A1, a good leader helps their employees reach their highest potential and possesses the necessary empathy and moral awareness to get there. A2, it's important to make a profound and positive impact on whatever I'm working on. A3, I have the unique ability to balance short-term needs and long-term goals. The opportunist. The opportunists are guided by a certain innate level of mistrust in others and rely on a facade of control to keep employees in line. These types of people usually believe in the adage of an eye for an eye. Here are some things an opportunist might say. 1, a good leader should always view others as potential competition to be bested, even if it's at the expense of their professional development. 2, I reserve the right to reject the input of those who question or criticize my ideas. 1, a good leader should always view others as a potential competition to be bested. 2, I reserve the right to reject the input of those who question or criticize my ideas. The next is the diplomat. The diplomat is not concerned with assuming control. Instead, they seek to cause minimal impact by conforming to existing norms and completing their daily tasks with as little friction as possible. Here are some things a diplomat might say. A good leader should always resist change since it risks causing instability. That was D1. D2, it's important to provide the social glue in team situations safely away from conflict. That's D2. D3, I tend to thrive in more team-oriented or supporting leadership roles. That's D3. D1 says a good leader should always resist change since it risks causing instability. D2 says it's important to provide the social glue in team situations safely away from conflict. D3, I tend to thrive in more team-oriented or supporting leadership roles. The last one, or the last bucket, is the expert. The expert is always at the front line of their field and continuously strives to perfect their knowledge and meet their own high expectations. The expert is fantastic as a contributor and source of knowledge, but can usually stand to improve in the field of emotional intelligence. So here are some statements that an expert might agree with. E1, a good leader should always prioritize their own pursuit of knowledge over the needs of the organization and their direct reports. E2, when problem solving with others within the company, in my opinion, tends to be the correct one. That was E2. E1, a good leader should always prioritize their own pursuit of knowledge over the needs of the organization and their direct reports. E2, when problem solving with others in the company, my opinion tends to be the correct one. So that completes our study, our questionnaire. Take a look at your notes and circle your answers. And then here is the scoring. Compare to the following table. So these are newer terms now. They're not the ones that the buckets that we originally put it in, which I mentioned at the very beginning. So if you're a democratic leader, you chose S3. If you're an autocratic leader, you probably chose 01, 02, or 01, 02, E1, and E2, and so on. So take a look at the items you selected, and then compare it to this chart, and then we'll go through and explain what each one of them means. The more statements you agreed with, the more likely you practice a mix of leadership styles. And here's how to break it down. If you agreed with everything the strategist said, S1, S2, and S3, this could make you a 66% strategic leader and 33% democratic leader. If you agreed with just S3, but also everything the alchemist said, this would make you 50% transformational, 25% strategic, and 25% democratic. If you'd like to share your results, feel free to email me, julie@exponentialfunctions.co, and I'd love to hear from you. I tested 50-50 on the change agent and strategic. Early on, I was definitely more transactional and laissez-faire. I hope you weren't too surprised by the outcome. Well, before we unpack that, I want to talk about the levels of a team and how they develop. There are 5 stages of teams development, and you can have the opportunity to learn more about that later. This is taken from Transformational Leadership. And why I'm pivoting to talk about this right now is because I believe that as we look at the various levels of a leader, the various types of leader, the democratic, the autocratic, the laissez-faire, the strategic, the change agent, the transactional, and the bureaucratic, you will see that there is room for each one of these leadership styles as you develop a team. But you can't stay in just one in order to take a team from a level 1 team to a level 5 team, which is continuous improvement. Now, the left column there, the vision, search, teach, train, equip, empower, let go, and evaluate, those are the activities that happen as the stages of the team and the team develop. The right column, the words, I'll be explaining a little bit more about those from a broad standpoint, about the types of activities that happen. You will recognize the middle as more of organizational charts. The last 3 may look a little different than anything you've seen, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So stage 1 is the safety stage. The vision of the organization is becoming understood, and the team is getting to know one another, and trust is being developed. Some companies never get beyond this stage due to poor relationships or a lack of a cohesive vision. Stage 2, commonly known as the servant leadership model, we call it the cohesive model. The team is starting to coalesce. People understand the vision and are buying into it, and trust is being built. They're taking responsibility for their jobs and their growth, and the leader is beginning to understand that those they lead and what they need to get to the next level. In stage 3, it's the functional responsibility. There's a high level of integrity and personal buy-in to the vision and the direction of the company. The roles are being clearly defined by the circles around them, and there's freedom and they become concerned not just about their job or their department, but the welfare of the organization. The lines between the circles represent the relationships between either the individuals or the departments. Stage 4, the employees, is the relational stage, and that's a term you probably haven't heard, but relational means when relationships, it's a made-up word from relationships and transactions, and when you can develop relationships so strong, signified by the deeper or the thicker blue lines, you can accomplish transactions with much more ease and grace. The relationships become strong, so you can add transactions on top of that, and you're able to navigate difficulties that naturally come along with anything you're trying to accomplish. So, employees are empowered at stage 4 and given opportunities to excel. There's freedom to examine outcomes freely without concerns of retribution or threats. In stage 5 is the continuous improvement. Now, groups and individuals are growing. Everyone's opinion matters. They're living out what's called a social covenant or a social agreement that they treat one another as they want to be treated, and they rectify it when they don't. New behaviors are the norm. They're able to evaluate and work and play and create new opportunities. We call it bubble jumping. So With this filter in mind, let's go back to the different leadership styles and we'll talk about them and where they fit into this framework of developing a highly functioning level 5 team. Are you ready? All right. So the democratic leader. For those of you who fell into this category, you'll be happy to hear that this style is commonly very effective. These types of leaders make decisions based on the input of each team, and although the leader makes the final call, each employee has an equal say on a project's direction. Democratic leadership is one of the most effective styles because it allows lower-level employees to exercise authority, which gives them more skin in the game and generally makes them more loyal to the company as a whole. Solving an issue under a democratic leadership resembles how decisions can be made in company board meetings. A leader gives the team a few decision-related options, an open discussion follows, and either the leader makes the decision based on that input or the decision is put to a vote. In this case, a democratic leader is operating in stage 3 to 5, levels 3 to 5 of teams development. In other words, trust is being developed, and it goes both ways. It goes too soon, and the company can be pulled in too many directions, and there may not be enough accountability based on individual agendas. Now, the autocratic leader or leadership, this is the leader that's utilized in stage 1. It's the opposite of democratic leadership, and autocratic leadership is rarely effective in the long term. In this style, employees are neither considered nor consulted prior to a direction change and are expected to adhere to a decision at the time and pace stipulated by the leader. An example of autocratic leader might be when a manager changes the work hours or shifts for multiple employees without consulting anybody. In today's workplace culture, this type of leadership can't be sustained without losing employees. And if you fell into this leadership category, work on being more open to the intellect and perspective of the rest of your team and build trust. You don't have to do this alone. On the other hand, if your company is new and you're establishing it and you're the leader, you are the one that establishes the culture. You convey vision, and purpose, and it's vital that you set the stage and make sure that the employees that you hire understand that and are willing and able to work under your leadership. The next side is the laissez-faire leadership. This French term literally translates, let them do it, and can refer to leaders who hand over nearly all authority to their employees. In a young startup, you might see a laissez-faire company founder who makes no major office policies around work hours, deadlines, and puts full trust in their employees while their focus is on the big pieces of running the company. While this leadership style can be empowering for employees, it can also limit their development and overlook critical company growth opportunities. This is utilized in stage 3. It's good because people are being trusted to do their job and responsible for clear-cut outcomes. But if you stay there, you can become fragmented, and there may not be enough full buy-in or accountability. There has to be real role clarity and accountability so that people are following through on what their responsibilities are. The next is the strategic leader. A strategic leader sits at the intersection between the company's main operations and its growth opportunities. This type of leader promotes culture of inquiry, but also accepts additional burdens in the interest of ensuring consistency and stability for everyone. Strategic leaders are constantly vigilant, honing their ability to anticipate by scanning the environment for signals of change. They also have a tendency to want to study failures, their own and their teams, as a constructive way to find the hidden lessons. A strategic leader operates in stages 3 through 5. I see potentials for challenges to get stuck as they can go into analysis paralysis. And personally, I see this in myself as this is one of my downfalls. But I do look at the company and the growth opportunities and look for the next opportunities that are out there. Now, the change agent leaders are always working to improve upon the status quo and push their team to grow and reach outside their comfort zone. This type of leadership is greatly desired among growth-minded companies because it motivates employees to see what they're capable of. This leader is operating within a stage 3 to 5 team. One potential downfall, if new employees come into the team of a change agent, they can risk empowering too much responsibility before the new team members' trust has been developed. And they might lose sight of how the group or the new individual in the group needs to be taught, trained, and equipped. Opportunities for coaching and training are definitely looked for here. Now, the transactional leader perhaps is one of the most common types of leaders. These managers reward their employees for precisely the work they're expected to do. These types of leaders lean on things like scheduled bonuses and staying within the status quo. Transactional leaders help establish roles and responsibilities for each employee, but can also encourage employees to stick to doing just the bare minimum. Encouragement here, become relational, become relational. This is where you build relationships so thick that you can work through any conflict because you have a strong foundation of relationship. Employees also respond when they know that you care and they're just not a human doing, a cog in a wheel, hired to just perform a task. So the bureaucratic leader, that's the last one we're going to talk about right now. Other phrases that can help describe this type of leader is traditional or old school. And these types of leaders go by the books. They might listen and consider the input of employees, but they tend to reject the ideas if they conflict with company policy or past practices. Common word is, we haven't done that way before. We don't need to change. Employees under this leadership style might not feel as controlled as they would under autocratic leaders, but there's still a lack of freedom in how much people are able to do within their roles. This type of leadership can lead to discouragement and a lack of innovation, something ambitious and growth-oriented companies definitely would want to avoid. And you probably won't keep young, ambitious employees who want to make their mark in the world. Personal experience working within a municipal government, I found it to be very bureaucratic. Not all departments were, but we often saw that. In my consulting practice, I've seen managers put rules in place organizationally to try to lead the outliers or performers rather than lead from relationship and buy-in. So regardless of what type of leadership styles you fell into, we know that there are aspects that you should always be trying to improve, and perhaps the most important one is communication. As a leader, you need to be able to clearly cast vision. You need to be able to clearly teach, train, and equip, and empower your team and everything in between. This means mastering all forms of communication, including one-on-one, departmental, and staff-wide, as well as proper etiquette for communication via phone, email, text, and social media. A large part of communication well involves creating an open and steady flow of communication from your team and creating an environment that affirms one another, walking out a social agreement for how you want to treat one another, being humble, and when and how people choose to come to you with ideas. A few things everybody can benefit from working on a team in terms of communication include understanding how people learn as well as their core everyday energy, what they bring to the table. I use core value index training as a way to assess individuals that come into my team, and I assess not only their core passions, but I look at the role that I'm asking them to serve and see whether their core energy, if they're a builder, they're always going to want to get things done. If they're emergent, they're going to be concerned about the people. If they're an innovator, they're going to be solving problems. And if they're a banker, they're going to be your resources. So finding the right person with the right energy is really important. Another thing that's important in communication is understanding body language, tone of voice, and the meaning of the actual words spoken. Sometimes meaning is not the same. Trust to one person and trust to another can have two different implications. Reducing ambiguity in both written and spoken language is important, and learning more about active listening. And keeping your team motivated. As a leader, it's your job to inspire your workers to go the extra mile and build their self-esteem along the way. Why? Because it will help them continue to stay loyal to their work and increase their investment in the success of the company. In order to keep your team motivated, show them that you're committed to them by asking for feedback, being open to listening to their concerns, and recognizing them in front of the rest of the team, or recognizing them, better yet, in the way they want to be recognized by learning the languages of appreciation. Being open to listening to their concern, and then understanding the differences in work styles and personalities. Are they better in groups? Are they better alone? Do they need to see the big picture first and then understand the smaller picture? Or do they need to just understand their role and not concerned about the bigger picture? And of course, saying thank you, affirming people for who they are, not just what they do. The next thing is practicing your ability to delegate. It's amongst novice leaders to believe that they're delegating tasks is signing that when they delegate tasks, it's a sign of weakness. Well, it is not. By identifying and understanding the skills of your employees and assigning their roles based on those skills, you're being smart, strategic, and resourceful. Remember, before you empower and launch someone, you first need to teach them so that they know what they're supposed to do, train them so that you watch them and you supervise them doing it, and then empower them, give them everything they need to succeed. Use good communication skills to define expectations and explore what each employee might be willing to take on. Be creative in the way that you assign responsibility and ask for feedback about the best way to take on a task. Just because you've been doing something one way doesn't mean there isn't 2, 3, or 4 other ways that someone else could do the same task just as well. So be flexible. This trust that you give others to handle larger parts of the business will provide them with a boost of their self-esteem and feel more involved, just to be sure that you're encouraging open communication along the way, and so that no one feels overwhelmed or ill-equipped to complete their tasks. As I wrap this up, I want you to reflect today. What did you learn? What are some of your takeaways? Write those down. And next, what will you do as a result of what you've learned? Now, I've talked about a few things, a few resources, specifically transformational leadership. And I want to tell you a little bit more about that and how you can learn more and engage with us. But I wanted to let you know this class was put together using some of the following resources. Of course, I used transformational leadership training developed by Ford Taylor. I also used Mind Tools, which is a wonderful online resource for leadership development. TheBalancedCareers.com is also another wonderful resource. Psychology Today had a couple of articles that I found especially helpful. And the HBR.org, which is a human resources organization, they had some wonderful tools. Now, I told you that we were offering a Portland Transformational Leadership, and it's coming here to Portland on October 24th and 25th. And I have the pleasure of leading that along with my cohort, Patrick McBain, who is flying in from Columbus. And Patrick is a dynamic speaker, trainer, and presenter. And he is funny as all get out, uses humor and transparency to bring powerful, life-changing messages to audiences everywhere. He's worked with organizations like GBS Corp, DHL, and the Air Force, And he's launched Transformational Leadership in the Philippines, in Kenya, and Rwanda, I believe. So Patrick is an amazing guy, and he and I are partnering up for this. It's been said that Transformational Leadership is one of the most powerful, impactful training programs, and it's been proven to solve complex business and interpersonal issues with straightforward, practical solutions. Our founder, Ford Taylor, says, while every leader has influence, not every leader has the power to positively impact others and move organizations towards success. So in our seminar, you will learn skills to identify the constraints impacting your ROA. What are constraints? Constraints can be both personal and process. They involve either the people, the processes, or the policies in your organization, and they impact your bottom line. So we're going to talk about how to look at those and how to identify the most important ones, that if you take care of that, then many other of your issues will go away. We talk about handling conflict and costly personnel issues, how to hire correctly, how to create an atmosphere in your organization that invites open, honest communication. We talk about how to apologize properly and how to go to somebody. It's those crucial conversations that can make or break your team. We talk about building and sustaining high-performance teams. Now, high-performance teams, I've showed you the levels of those, and what we do is we break down the behaviors that are happening at each stage and the tools to use at each level to help you move through and grow. Of course, change and the dynamic of change is always a hot topic. And there are 4 levels of change and 9 dynamics of change. And we teach you strategies for navigating those both personally and organizationally. We teach you how to deliver your next project on time and under budget, what that looks like in a team. We talk about communication effectively across cultures and generations. And then finally, we talk about completing and executing an action plan for success so that you can leave with a blueprint for moving forward. And at the seminar, there's going to be lots of bonuses and add-ons that will follow you after the seminar to help you get on the right road and the right path. You're guaranteed to come away with the ingredients, tools, and the recipe to gain influence, drive teamwork, remove constraints, and empower growth. Here are the event details on here, October 24th and 25th, 2019, 8:30 to 5 p.m. The tickets are $399, and it's at the Marquis Center. It's a beautiful center in Tualatin, right near the city center. More information is at portlandtl.com. Now, if you register before 9/17, you get a huge discount. And the promo code to do that is LL half off. Yes, that's right. Half off. I want people to come, and I want them to experience what I experienced the first time I went to Transformational Leadership. It was powerful, and it changed my life. So here are the websites to find out more. You can email me at julie@exponentialfunctions.co. There's our office number. Portland TL is the site to go directly to register. Remember, in summation, a boss has the title, the leader has the people. I'd like to thank you for being a part of today. Thank you for taking time to invest in your leadership. And I hope you'll join me on October 24th and 25th at our next live TL. Me and Patrick, we're going to have a great time. Thanks for being here, and have a great rest of your week.